Welcome back to Premium Light Academy. I'm JT, and in this video we're going to be reviewing the Nikon Z6. As many of you know, I like to shoot Nikon, and in my arsenal right now is the Nikon Z6. It's a great all-around camera, and in this video I'm going to be sharing with you some of the pros and the cons of the Z6 and why I love to shoot with it. So let's hop right in. So let's start talking about some of the specifications of the Nikon Z6. It is a 24.5 megapixel sensor. That is a full frame FX sensor. That's what Nikon likes to call their full frame sensors. It has an ISO range of 100 up to 51,000. Now I probably won't be shooting photos up to 51,000, but the Z6 does pretty great in low light, especially when I'm shooting my low light portraits, which I love to do. Now, if you like to shoot sports or fast-paced action, the Z6 can shoot up to 12 frames per second at that 24.5 megapixels if you're shooting in continuous high mode. I really don't shoot sports that often anymore. I have used my Z6 for a little bit of military uncontrolled action, things like rocket launches, aircraft taking off, all sorts of fun things like that. Now I stick to a little more landscape and portrait photography, but all around I think the Z6 is great and performs great in pretty much any situation I've put it in. Now when it comes to video, the Z6 shoots Ultra HD 4K at 23 frames per second, 30 frames per second, and you also have the option of shooting at Full HD or 1920 by 1080 at up to 120 frames per second for some really silky smooth slow motion B-roll. And if you have an external recorder, you can record 10-bit N-Log or Nikon's version of log recording to an HDMI device. Now the Z6 only has a single CF Express or XQD slot, but it also has a mini HDMI output if you'd like to record that video data to an external recorder. And again, that would give you the advantage of shooting that 10-bit log if you would like to. A quick note about autofocus. I think the Z6 is pretty great when it comes to autofocus and has 273 autofocus points. The Z6 also has eye autofocus, and with a recent firmware update also has pet eye autofocus, which is pretty cool if you like taking photos of your pets around the house. The Z6 also shoots on the EN-EL15B battery, so if you happen to be shooting on, let's say, a D610, a D800, a D810, maybe a D850, all of those batteries are compatible with the Z6. And lastly, coming in at a light 1.29 pounds or 585 grams for just the body, the Z6 is pretty darn lightweight. So those are the specs of the Nikon Z6, and before we hop into the pros and the cons, I'd like to take a second to talk about Premium Light Academy. If you're like me, you've probably spent hours on YouTube looking for high quality educational photography content, and you'll know it's really few and far between. That's why we created Premium Light Academy, to give you a high quality photography education. So head over to premiumlightacademy.com and take a look at some of the photography masterclasses we have available. All right, without further ado, let's talk about some of the pros of the Nikon Z6. The Z6 is a great lightweight camera. I love it for run and gun photography, whether that's landscape photography, street photography, or portraits. This camera just performs like a champ no matter what I throw at it, and I always go home with beautiful looking images. When it comes to video, the quality is absolutely superb, and one thing that most people don't know about is that 1080 120 frames per second for shooting that silky smooth B-roll. Now, one of the downsides about the Nikon Z6 is that most cameras these days do have the capability of shooting 4K 60, and the Z6 is limited to 4K at 30 frames per second. Again, you could shoot 60 frames per second, but you're limited to 1920 by 1080 or full HD. But I do have to note that the 4K footage is absolutely superb. Some people may also consider the one card slot a con or a negative about this camera. I've personally never needed dual card slots, and the way most technology works, if one slot happens to die, typically both of them are running through the same bus, so typically both card slots will die. So that's why I don't really necessarily see two card slots as a huge advantage, and it's never really affected my shooting at all. So to wrap this video up, I just have to say I love the Nikon Z6. I really enjoy shooting Nikons. It was very easy to bring over all of my older Nikon glass and just use the FTZ adapter to shoot on my Z mount Nikon Z6. So I would definitely recommend the Z6. They run right around $1,500. Sometimes they'll come with the FTZ adapter. If not, you can buy that separately for around $250, but we will have links to all of those down in the description. So that's all for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you like to shoot with. I'm JT, and this video was brought to you by Premium Light Academy.